Welcome to Ogles Channel. Thanks for watching today. Let's continue our journey to finish every single Game Boy and Game Boy Color game. And today we're focused on a game called Power Racer for the original Game Boy. Now this game is less of a racing game and more like a Pac-Man type game. It's an old school arcade game originally called Head On that's basically been converted over to Game Boy. However, they add a ton of extra stuff inside of this game to really separate it from the original arcade game from like the 70s. And the soundtrack for this game, phenomenal. This is like one of the most, I guess, underrated or just forgotten about soundtracks for the Game Boy. We're going to cover all that and more as we journey through Power Racer for the Game Boy. Now, I always like to start the videos off by looking at the box art for the game first, and the box art for Power Racer is actually a pretty cool little aesthetic here. Reminds me of the movie Tron from the 80s with the 3D grid look in sort of the background there. But you basically have your two race cars racing around the track, collecting little yellow dots here, and you're trying to avoid a head-on collision, which is what they're getting ready to have on the cover. I mean, it summarizes the game like completely perfectly. It reminds me a little bit of Pac-Man as well, which is probably what they're trying to go for, because they're trying to cash in on the Pac-Man name, especially since the aesthetics of the game is so similar when you're playing it. But overall, a pretty cool looking cover for what's going to be a really fun game. Now when you start up here, the game wastes like no time as far as like kicking the action into gear. The title's flashing in, the car itself is flashing in, the music begins to pump up from the background, and the intro song here, it like sets the tone for the rest of the soundtrack. And I'll give you a little sampling here of just listening to the intro song. As much as I like that intro song, it's not even the best song in the game. I'm not kidding around when I say this is one of the most overlooked soundtracks for the Game Boy. It's got one of my favorite songs I've encountered in this entire challenge so far. We're going to get to that here in a little bit. But when you start the game up here, you have 3 different game modes you can choose from. You have the 1-player, 1-player special, and then 2-player special. Now regular 1-player is going to be a pretty solid port over from the arcade game Head On, as far as just simply giving you a very basic map here, going around the little circle, collecting all the little dots as you go, trying to avoid a head-on collision. Now there are 9 courses that you can go through, and truth be told, you only have to complete course number 9 in order to actually finish this particular game mode. However, I went through all 9 of the courses here, or I guess actually 10 since 0 is a course number as well. And the only difference is going to be the higher number up you go, the faster the opposing car is going to be, and the more cars are going to add into the mix to try to head off or collide with you. And despite it seeming really simple here, it's actually a pretty hard game the further into levels you get. Like level 1 and 2, they may have taken me, like 2 or 3 tries to actually get it down. But when I got to like level 9, I'm not kidding, I probably spent an hour going around this course here just trying to collect all these little dots and avoid a head-on collision. And as you're going through it, you can swap lanes, as you're going around the circle here. Anytime there's an opening, you can swap lanes going up and down, left and right. You can usually only do 1 lane at a time if you're going like super fast, max speed. If you're going slower, you can skip over multiple lanes. But the opposing car can also skip over lanes, and it's like the AI is pretty darn good for a Game Boy game from the late 80s, early 90s. And so when you're in like course number 9 here, like you are having head-on collisions constantly. So like I said, even though you don't have to go through course 0 through 8 in order to finish this particular game mode, if you don't go through all those earlier courses, it's going to be tougher for you to understand the mechanics of the game, how to predict the computer AI, how to swap lanes, which lanes to go in, and just develop a pretty good little strategy. But every time you race, like it's a ton of fun. It's a very addictive game. But also, every time you have a game over, you get this amazing song. I'm not kidding, like when I said earlier, like the intro was not the best song in the game. Every individual race has its own little soundtrack as well. But when you have a game over, this song comes into play, and this song right here is one of the best Game Boy songs I've ever heard. Just give it a little bit of a listen right now. Like, how is this song stuck on a forgotten Game Boy game from the 80s that no one is really going to ever hear? I don't know if Tecmo needs to make a new game or Nintendo needs to put in like Super Smash Brothers, but this song right here does not need to stay forgotten and just filed away in the lost history of video games. Bring this song back. Now when you do finally finish course number 9, you don't really get a very satisfying ending screen. It basically shows the car from the title screen and says, "You are great," which is not really satisfying. But at the same time, this is not the main game mode for Power Racer. This is more of a port of the arcade game Head On. So now we're going to move on into the special game mode. Now this is where Power Racer really begins to shine, because it's obviously the same mechanics here. You're racing around a little circle here trying to collect all the dots, avoid a head-on collision. However, Now you have obstacles in the way. You have power-ups that you can get by pressing the B button. You can actually like shoot bombs out. You can slow down the other racer. You can get like a little bubble shield around you. You can make a second extra life racer behind you. And so there's all kinds of little power-ups that you can get that really mix this game mode up and make it significantly more fun. As you're going through this, I would actually say this game mode is easier because you can sort of manipulate the environment a little bit with all your different items and get like extra lives and a shield. But this is a really, really fun game mode. It's almost like an early version of like Mario Kart or Diddy Kong Racing, and figuring out like when you want to use these items to hinder your enemy the absolute most on this game. And there's a lot of strategy that goes into using these particular items. Like I've played other games as far as like RC Pro-Am that had you know, weapons and such in that game as well, as far as like early racing games, and they always felt sort of pointless, sort of useless, didn't really make a whole lot of difference. The items in this particular race, you can really like turn the fortune or turn the tables completely by having these items, and I love the items. There's even one item you can get, it's called C, which I assume means complete, because when you get the C item, it then collects every single little dot and gives you those points, and you won the race like no questions asked. And so when you see this particular item appear on the track, like you are in a mad dash to get over there because you want to win that race immediately and not take a chance on losing that particular item. It's almost like the same thrill of getting like a star or a lightning bolt or the blue turtle shell in Mario Kart. And so that's what I mean by like the items actually have some emphasis on the gameplay, because when you see items you want, like you are really going out of your way to get those particular items. Now, as you're going through all 10 of the tracks here, 0 up through 9, they are going to change up a little bit as far as like different conveyor belts going in and out, different oil spills, different little doors that open and close, and even in some cases like a little bit of a rearranging of the track itself. Like I know track number 9 here, they rearranged it completely as you go, and just a really fun track. And like honestly, this game mode, a special game mode here, is some of the most fun I've had in just a simple Game Boy game. I know it's not the most flashy game, I know it's not the most adventurous game, the most complex game, but if you're just looking for like pure basic arcadey fun, Power Racer, you cannot go wrong in this special game mode. Now, as I was going through it, I was doing a part 1, 0 up through 9, because that was the default on there. However, when I finished it, I got a pretty okay end scene. It was just simply the car on the bridge with a little city line or skyline behind me there. And it was a fine little ending of the game. But I was like, you know what? I wonder what it does if you finish it on part 3 and you go through all these 9 levels on difficulty level 3. And I will say, when you put on this particular difficulty, the cars go significantly faster. I mean, they are zooming around the track trying to hit you. And especially when you get to level 9 on difficulty 3, this is pretty crazy how fast they're going. But I did luck out. I'm not going to say like I would have never beat it just regularly, because I was coming really darn close after like 20-30 minutes of trying. However, eventually the letter C appeared on that particular track. I was able to get the C and finish up level 9 on the most difficult level of the game. And when you do this, you actually get the official ending of the game, which is going to be your car driving down the little street here, the little sunset in the background, the little skyline or the city line. Beautiful ending, and I would love to see this in like sort of a orangish, sort of like Miami Vice type colors. I think it would look absolutely amazing like on the Game Boy Color as far as the ending screen. A very cool ending to the game, and it sort of gives you an extra incentive to finish the game on the most difficult setting. And of course, I guess your car like crashes because like a little wheel comes bouncing back after your car goes off the screen. I mean, a cool little ending to the game, I will say. Now, there is a 2-player special mode, and you can use a link cable and you can battle against people in this game. I didn't have the ability to link up with anybody to go through this particular game mode, but I can only imagine like how much fun this would be, and I would love to see them actually put this on like the Switch Online so you can actually go through this and battle against people, because this is some of the most fun I've had in a racing game for the Game Boy. And to me, this like sets the bar of what I want in a Game Boy racing game, even though I know it's not technically racing, it's more of a collecting game with items. To me, this is the most fun I've had in what's considered a racing game for the Game Boy. But overall, if you haven't given Power Racer a try on the Game Boy, you're missing out on one of the most like simple, fun games that's out there, and it has a killer soundtrack throughout the entire experience. And even if you don't want to play the game, just get on YouTube, find the soundtrack, listen to the soundtrack, put it on the background, and I know you won't be disappointed. But the game itself, just pure arcadey fun, And I don't think you can go wrong with Power Racer. But what are your thoughts about the game? Have you tried it before? Did you love the game? Did you hate the game? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check my other videos listed up above. Check out more videos in the Finishing Every Game Boy Game series. And let me know if there's a game you want to see me cover sooner than later in the comments down below as well. But by all means, go out there, find a great game to play. Just simply have a great rest of the day.